Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really digging into something powerful, those hidden mental skills, the ones that fuel peak performance. And not just in sports, but like everywhere in your life. Big presentation coming up, pushing for a personal best, or just, getting through the day. These insights, super relevant, our source material for this deep dive. It's a really fascinating mix. We've got advanced praise, a forward, and key bits from a book called Mind Gym, An Athlete's Guide to Inner Excellence. It's by Gary Mack with Dibika Stevens. And Gary Mack, well, he's pretty well known for working with top athletes, pro teams, that kind of thing. So our mission today, basically, pull out the best nuggets of wisdom about mental prep. Give you a shortcut, really, to understanding how you can use this stuff in your own life, your own challenges.
Yeah, and what's so striking, I think, is just how universal these principles are. I
Right.
mean, okay, the book is set in the world of sports,
Yeah.
obviously, but the skills it talks about, managing pressure, focus, setting goals, that stuff goes way beyond the playing field. You see it in business, in personal health journeys, even just handling everyday stuff.
Yeah.
It's basically the science of performing well, and anyone can adapt it.
Right. So let's unpack this core idea first. The huge impact of the inner game. Yogi Berra's famous line, 90% of the game is half mental. Huh. It sounds a bit like a puzzle, doesn't it? But it really gets to the heart of things. Think about it for a second. Your own best day ever. That time you were totally in the zone, everything just clicked. And then contrast that with maybe your worst performance. Feeling stuck, maybe overwhelmed. Nothing worked right. No matter how hard you tried. What was really different?
Well, the author uses a version of that exact exercise.
Yeah.
And he uses it with all sorts of groups. Sports psychologists, yeah, but also Olympic athletes, doctors, even fire chiefs. Really diverse. And what always comes out consistently is that once you hit a certain level of, let's say, physical skill or technical know-how, well, the mental stuff becomes just as important, maybe even more important. Those peak moments you mentioned where things feel easy, time slows down, he calls those white moments or, playing in the zone.
Makes you think, doesn't it? If that gap between our best and our worst is, say, 50% mental,
Yeah.
how much time do we actually spend training our mind? We go to the gym for our bodies, right? But what about the mind gym?
Exactly. That's the key insight. Your mind's imagination. It's not just for daydreaming. It's like a performance simulator.
Mm.
What you really vividly imagine or rehearse in your head, your body actually treats it like a real experience, like how a nightmare feels totally real. And studies back this up time and again. Mental training boosts performance, improves productivity, sure, but it also just makes things more enjoyable. It's about learning to, consciously use your mind in a constructive way. Stay focused, handle setbacks, stay motivated when things get tough.
Which is exactly why we're kind of framing this book as your blueprint for building mental muscle, because just like physical strength, this inner excellence, it's not magic. It takes work, consistent effort, practice. Okay, so let's dive into some of these specifics. These mind games the pros use to get that edge. Tommy Bolt, the golfer, he said, the mind messes up more shots than the body. He obviously got it. For every physical action, there's that critical mental part right before it.
Oh, absolutely. And a really fundamental skill is just learning to focus intensely on what you're doing right now. And at the same time, blocking out the negative thoughts, the distractions. Your mind can really only hold one dominant thought at a time. The book gives this great contrast. There's this self-conscious place kicker totally crumbling because his coach is staring at him, versus Aldo Greco, a veteran kicker. He had this simple trigger word, birdie. Just saying that word helped him clear his head, refocus on, succeeding, on joy even. And this connects to what the author calls the law of dominant thought. Think about a golfer, right? Standing on the tee, there's water ahead. If they're thinking, don't hit it in the water, don't hit it in the water, well, their mind and body are getting a negative command. They're almost programming themselves for failure. The law basically says your mind works best with clear, positive instructions. But instead of don't do X, you tell your mind exactly what to do, like land the ball 10 yards right at the pin. You're directing the energy positively.
And here's where it gets really interesting, like practical. The book tells this amazing story about a Chicago Cubs pitcher. He calls the author, totally freaking out after a terrible game, just filled with negative self-talk, right? Don't hang the curve, I'm going to lose my spot. Classic stuff. And the author just shifts his focus, tells him to concentrate on a couple of simple performance keys, things he could control, locate the fastball, throw first pitch strikes, positive actions, and his very next game. Less than a week later, complete game shutout. Physically, he couldn't have changed that much. It's just incredible proof, isn't it? Change your thinking, choose those mental instructions, and you can genuinely change your performance. Okay, building on that power of directing your mind, let's talk about the head edge. Mark McGuire, remember him? Before his 70th home run, he's sitting there, eyes closed, mentally swinging. He actually said, "Everybody looks at my body, but I use my mind more than my arms." And Carl Yastrzemski, Yaz, he used to visualize pitches the night before, see himself making perfect contact.
And this isn't just, sports folklore. The power of visualization, of mental rehearsal. It's backed up by so much research, decades of it. You take two groups, equal physical ability. One gets mental training, the other doesn't. The trained group almost always performs better. There was this one study, really eye-opening with college basketball players. One group physically shot free throws for an hour. They improved, obviously. But another group, they visualized shooting for 30 minutes and only practiced physically for 30 minutes. Their improvement in accuracy, exactly the same.
Wow.
Yeah. It shows your brain basically builds these neural pathways through vivid imagery. It's almost like you did the physical action. The U.S. Olympic ski team. They made imagery training mandatory because it works so well.
And it's not new, right? Pele, the soccer legend, he had this pre-game ritual. Find a quiet spot, cover his eyes, and just mentally rehearse. He'd see himself as a kid playing, relive big wins, then picture himself dribbling, scoring in the game that was about to happen. It's such a great reminder for all of us, Create your own mind, Jim. Practice mentally.
Absolutely. Sports psychology really gives us the science of success. And it shows, plain as day, that people who weave mental training into their routine just do better than others with the same physical talent. The takeaway is pretty clear. Mental skills, just like physical ones, need constant, dedicated practice.
So how does all this hold up under pressure, when the stakes are really high? Let's dig into the pressure principle. Scott Hamilton, the figure skater, he said, under pressure, you can perform 15% better or worse. How do you think that applies to, the everyday pressures you face? A tight deadline, a difficult conversation.
Well, pressure is definitely real. And like athletes John Elway or Marc Messier said, a lot of it actually comes from inside us, how we interpret the situation. Physically, you feel it, right? Heart races, breathing gets quick, muscles tense up. But what's fascinating is how different athletes handle it. Goose Gossage, the pitcher, he thrived on it, said he wasn't his best until things were really tough. Others, like Scott Hamilton, they developed this refined indifference, just letting their training take over. Or Sarah Hughes, remember at the Olympics, just pure uninhibited joy in that huge moment. So the big question for you, for anyone, is how do you see pressure? Is it mostly a threat or is it an exciting challenge? Because that view, it dictates everything that follows.
That's a really key question. How you frame it changes everything. Okay, now let's talk mental toughness. Mia Hamm, soccer icon, right? She said, the most important attribute a player must have is mental toughness. The book breaks this down into the 7 C's: competitive, confident, control, committed, composure, courage, and consistency.
Yeah, and they're not just words, they're actionable. Take composure. The author used to do drills like shoving a hockey player in the locker room just to see how they'd react under sudden stress, control their emotions, or he'd tell tennis players, look, expect a couple of bad calls every match, prepare for it mentally. So they wouldn't just unravel when it happened. For courage, there's this great analogy from Paul Stoltz about climbers versus campers on a mountain. Only the climbers, the ones willing to push through discomfort, actually reach the top. It all comes back to that idea. Competition is won or lost on the 6-inch playing field between the ears. It really is.
And speaking of that playing field, we also need to know your numbers. Phil Jackson, the coach, he'd sometimes check his pulse during intense games, knew if it got over 100, his thinking wouldn't be as sharp. This links to that performance curve, right? That inverted U. Too little stress, you're bored. Too much, you panic. There's a sweet spot.
It's exactly right. And everyone's optimal level is different. Depends on your personality, how long the task is, what kind of task it is. A sprinter's optimal is way different from a marathon runner's. The key insight really is learning to spot your own warning signs when you're getting outside that optimal zone. Physically, maybe it's a racing heart, sweaty palms, stomach churning. Mentally, it could be a mind racing or those little negative whispers starting up. The book tells about this hockey rookie. He was either a 9 or 10, totally wired, or a 3 or 4, kind of sluggish. By tweaking his pregame routine, focusing on what got him to his best state, he learned to consistently hit his optimal 6 or 7. The lesson. You can't really control your performance until you learn to control yourself first.
Okay, let's shift gears a little. Let's talk about responsibility psychology. Greg Maddux, the pitcher, had this incredible insight. He said, what benefited me most is learning I can't control what happens outside of my pitching. It's really about owning your choices, right? No matter what's happening around you.
That's such a powerful realization, isn't it? Real success in anything, it really comes down to you, not blaming external stuff. The author shares this personal story. He got fired unexpectedly by Buddy Ryan, the coach. And in that moment, feeling shocked, angry, he made a conscious choice. He responded with grace, wished Ryan luck instead of blowing up. And his point is huge. You can't always control what happens to you, but you always control how you respond. And that response, that defines what happens next.
And a big part of taking responsibility often means, well, getting over yourself, as the author puts it, confronting those inner critics, those gremlins that trip us up.
Oh yeah, the gremlins. Those internal saboteurs. Think about fear. You see it sometimes like a brilliant surgeon who suddenly can't make a simple 4-foot putt. It's not physical ability, it's psychological. Fear of messing up or anger. The book uses Charlie Brown and Lucy, his mind and body just aren't communicating. Then there's anxiety, that white line fever where players look great warming up and fall apart in the game. Self-consciousness too. Ozzie Smith knew he could be anyone who was afraid of looking bad. Even perfectionism can be a gremlin. Sean Estes, the pitcher, his own worst critic, never satisfied, called anything less than perfect fake emeralds. And you've got others. Stubbornness, lack of motivation, huge distractions like Darryl Strawberry faced, versus the amazing persistence of people like Jim Abbott, Lance Armstrong, Kurt Warner. The crucial first step is just figuring out which gremlins are holding you back. You got to identify them first.
That's so important. Just naming them is half the battle, maybe. And once you start clearing those out, you can actually reach the next level. The author talks about Kaizen, this Japanese concept from baseball, constant daily improvement. The movie Mr. Baseball shows it perfectly. Tom Selleck's character, this arrogant player, he has to admit his weaknesses and really work on them to get better.
It's a total mindset shift. Think about Hank Aaron or Magic Johnson. Even after they were legends, they kept working on their weaknesses. It's just human nature, isn't it? We like practicing what we're good at. But the real growth, the big improvements, they come from tackling what we don't do well. The author uses a great metaphor. The mind's like a parachute, only works when it's open. Being open to seeing your flaws and committing to that constant growth, that's Kaizen.
All right, let's talk building that success blueprint. Starting with living the dream. Dwight Smith, the Cubs player. He had this incredibly detailed dream playing at Wrigley, hitting .300, even singing the anthem, and he made it real.
And that connects right into this ACT backward exercise the author uses. First, A. Accept where you are now, strengths, weaknesses, no judgment. Then C. Create your desired future. Like Smith's dream. Make it vivid, detailed. And T. Take action. Map out the actual steps, the habits, the practices to get you there. People who achieve extraordinary things, they often live life backward in a way. Create the future vision first, then live into it.
Which flows perfectly into progress, not perfection. And, the power of setting goals. Michael Jordan said it best. I'm a firm believer in goal setting, step by step. I can't see any other way.
Exactly. And the research. People like Locke and Latham, it consistently shows successful people are incredibly goal-oriented. They turn those big dreams into action with specific goals. The book pushes these SMART acronyms: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time-bound. We've probably all heard that. But it also makes this really crucial distinction between performance goals, things you directly control, like quality at-bats, and outcome goals, like winning the game, which you don't fully control. The author tells about working with a struggling rookie QB. By getting him to focus on short-term, specific performance goals, he helped him regain a sense of control and handle the pressure. Focus on what you can actually do.
And of course, talent alone isn't enough. Magic Johnson said that. Which brings us to don't shirk the work. Ricky Prohl, remember him, an overnight success after 10 years of grinding. It's that Vince Lombardi heart power idea. Dedication, determination, paying the price.
That's the real separator, isn't it? That heart power. It's what divides those who just want it from those who actually do it. Rod Carew, Hall of Famer, he even said he saw players with, quote, no ability to speak of, stay in the majors for 15 years just purely on effort, working harder than everyone else. It's a huge testament to just sticking with it.
Now, on the flip side of that discipline, we have to talk about fatal distractions. The book gives some tough examples. Nota Bege's DUI. Stories about drugs, alcohol, bad company derailing careers. Satchel Paige, Carl Lewis, John Daly, Richard Dumas.
Yeah, those are harsh reminders, aren't they? About how vital it is to protect your focus. Stay locked onto your goals. The message is pretty stark. You have to actively spot and steer clear of anything internal or external that pulls you on track. As the book says pretty powerfully, say yes to your dreams and no to distractions.
But it's not just about avoiding negatives. You also absolutely gotta believe. Tiger Woods, when asked if he imagined his incredible early success, his answer was just, Absolutely.
Hmm.
What's so interesting there is how belief isn't just passive wishing. It actually drives the actions that make success happen.
It really does. The book talks about the ABC theory, activating event, belief, consequence. It shows it's not the event itself, A, that causes stress or dictates our actions. C, it's our belief, B, about the event. Those irrational beliefs like thinking failure is the end of the world or you have to be perfect, they lead straight to self-sabotage. So the advice, counteract them. Intentionally feed your mind powerful, positive affirmations. In the present tense, like Muhammad Ali, I'm so bad I make medicine sick. Build that inner narrative of what's possible.
Okay, let's really get between the ears now, Willie Mays. What you are thinking, what shape your mind is in, is what makes the biggest difference. And Bobby Jones said golf is played on that 5.5-inch course between your ears.
It's definitely a battleground in there sometimes. The author helped this pitcher, whose pregame thoughts were just a disaster movie of negative predictions. So they broke it down, analyzed that negative critic voice, then consciously replaced it with positive self-talk, focusing on good actions he could control, like his fastball command. And it totally turned him around. We all have those voices, right? The inner critic and the inner coach. The amazing thing is, we get to choose which one we listen to, which one we amplify. Arnold Palmer supposedly kept a poem in his locker, just reminding him of that power of belief.
And to quiet that chattering monkey mind, that overanalysis, the book suggests simply observe. It draws from Tim Galway's inner tennis idea, the bounce hit thing. Just see the ball, hit the ball, let go of the thinking, trust your body.
Precisely. It connects to clear the mechanism. Basically, intentionally empty your mind right before you act. Let instinct take over. Focus purely on the target, like great hitters or pitchers do, not on the commentary in your head. Jack Nicklaus was famous for his detailed visualization. He'd see the whole shot unfold, the flight, the landing, then see himself make the perfect swing. It's about getting into that deep, single-pointed focus. Eyes like laser beams, as the book says.
And when all that clicks, observing, trusting, not overthinking, that's when you can find yourself in those incredible white moments, the zone.
Yeah.
What's that feel like? Effortless flow, almost no thinking. Ben Crenshaw talked about it after winning the Masters unexpectedly. Michael Jordan called it the reward for hard work. Yuri Vlasov, the weightlifter, described it almost poetically feeling capable of anything.
Yeah, the zone is really about switching modes. From that deliberate thinking training mode to a completely intuitive trusting mode. Time can warp, space can change, the hoop looks huge, the ball seems slow, but the key thing is, you don't try to get in the zone. You can't force it. It's the natural result, the reward, really, for all the preparation and hard work. You just let go and allow your trained self to perform effortlessly.
But inevitably, sometimes that flow stops. We hit a slump. Paralysis by analysis, the book calls it. There's that funny story about Rick Wilkins, the Cubs catcher. He started hitting again after a mental talk he didn't even go to.
Sometimes less really is more, huh?
Yeah, that's a great one. Slumps often come directly from overthinking, like Snoopy trying to explain flight physics to Woodstock, making him crash. The best advice often is, do less, not more. Go back to basics. Simplify. Remember the old saying, first rule of holes, stop digging. Don't make it more complicated when you're stuck.
And sports, just like life, is full of these weird paradoxes of performance, isn't it? Like less being more, slowing down to go faster, how fearing failure makes it more likely. These paradoxes point to something deeper about mastery. Sometimes, yeah, you have to accept getting worse for a bit before you get better. Like Tiger Woods completely rebuilding his swing after huge success. That took courage, and maybe the most profound one, the likelihood of getting what you want actually goes up when you can somehow let go of the desperate need to get it. It's about understanding these sort of counterintuitive truths.
So pulling this all together, what does it really mean for you listening right now? Let's talk inner excellence. Shaquille O'Neal, the big Aristotle, he got it. Excellence is not a singular act, but a habit.
Exactly. Inner excellence isn't just about winning one thing. It's a whole way of thinking, of acting. It's a mindset focused on responsibility, on finding the positive, on handling setbacks with optimism. Fundamentally, it's about finding real love and joy in what you do. The book lists these 10 qualities: having a dream, commitment, responsibility, like the author getting rehired because of how he handled being fired. Also, openness to learning that Kaizen idea again. Optimism, self-confidence, emotional control, resilience, your adversity quotient, character, and just sheer persistence. It's a complete package for a high-achieving, fulfilling life.
And this path ultimately leads to finding the hero within, recognizing that courage comes from the heart and that ordinary people truly can do extraordinary things. Kurt Warner bagging groceries to Super Bowl MVP, Gene Driscoll winning the Boston Marathon in a wheelchair. Those other inspiring stories, Elwood Ware, Sis Warnkus, Tim Foltz, they just prove it right. The greatest victory is the victory over ourselves.
Yeah.
It also really highlights the well-played game, how sports can teach us so much more than just winning. Lessons about fairness, sticking with it, discipline. It kind of challenges you to redefine winning as just doing your personal best, no matter the score.
And that leads right into the mirror test. People like Joe Montana, Ken Griffey Jr., finding peace just knowing they could look in the mirror and say, I gave it everything I had. Oh. For a truly successful life, the book offers the 5 L's. Love what you do, labor hard, always learn, find laughter, and know when to leave or let go. Ken Griffey Jr.'s whole career kind of embodies all 5. Giving your all, finding joy, growing, and knowing when to move on.
And in the end, these stories, they represent the big win. Mark McGwire battling injuries to hit 70 homers. Michael Jordan, cut from his high school team, becomes a legend. Lance Armstrong beating cancer to win the Tour de France. These aren't just feel-good tales, they're real proof. Proof that amazing things can happen, even for ordinary people if they apply these principles, work incredibly hard, and just refuse to give up on what seems impossible.
Wow. We've definitely covered a lot of ground today, from how much your mental state impacts everything to specific tools like visualization, goals, handling pressure. But the main thing, I think, is that this isn't just for elite athletes. These are truly universal principles for finding that inner excellence in whatever you do.
Absolutely. And remember, that feeling of confidence, it comes directly from knowing you're prepared, mentally and physically. We really hope this deep dive gets you thinking differently about challenges, maybe seeing them less as threats and more as, well, exciting chances to grow and learn more about yourself. So, as you finish listening, maybe as you go about your day, here's a thought to mull over. What's one small, consistent mental practice you could commit to starting today that might just help you achieve your biggest win tomorrow?